Do you find it annoying how when you take a photo on your iPhone, it comes out as this weird HEIC file format? You send it to someone on a Windows laptop and they can't open it, or you try to upload it to some web form and it gets rejected. And you think, why can't Apple just use JPEG like everybody else? Why do they have to make things difficult and proprietary? And it's a fair question, but it's actually not Apple trying to be difficult at all. It's actually a window into how Apple thinks about technology at a fundamental level. And whether you love Apple or hate them, there's a lesson here that matters for everyone developing software solutions. So let's get the obvious criticism out the way first. A lot of people will say that's just Apple trying to create lock-in. And yes, proprietary file formats do create lock-in. Once your entire photo library is in HEIC and your documents are in Pages, your workflow lives inside Apple's ecosystem. So the cost of leaving becomes enormous because every file you create is another thread tying you to the platform. But every technology company does this. Microsoft did it for decades with Office formats. Adobe does it with PSDs. That's not new and it's not unique to Apple, but it's not the real reason. Because if it was only about lock-in, Apple would be creating a whole bunch of complexity for no real reason. The real reason Apple makes their own file formats is vertical integration. That's because once you control the file format and the hardware and the operating system and the compiler and the chip, you can make optimization decisions that are simply not possible any other way. On a standard system reading a JPEG file, the CPU does all the work, which is absolutely fine if you're running generic hardware. That'll work on everything from a cheap Android phone to a 15-year-old Dell laptop. And that's the point of JPEG, it's universally compatible. But Apple's philosophy isn't about making things work for the lowest common denominator. They want to make the best possible user experience. So they optimize their file formats to run on their hardware. The result is that HEIC photos are roughly half the file size of JPEG for the same quality. That means your 128 gig iPhone stores twice as many photos, and they decode faster on Apple hardware because the file format was designed to go hand in glove with the chip. So it's actually not Apple being difficult at all. It's Apple trading compatibility for performance, and they decided that performance was worth more. Now, to be honest, they could fix their photo app to make exporting JPEG a little bit easier, but that's another matter entirely. But that's what vertical integration actually looks like at a file format level. It's not a theoretical exercise, it's measurably better performance. And this is what sets Apple apart from the rest of the industry. The conventional approach for enterprise for the last 30 years has been about horizontal compatibility, open standards where everything talks to everything else, and it works. But the cost is performance because every open standard is a compromise somewhere between dozens of competing requirements. Apple's approach allows them to control the format and the compute layer together, so you get outcomes that horizontal approaches simply can't match. Smaller files, faster processing, better security, and lower energy consumption. Most people know of the universal file formats, JPEG, PNG, FLAC, H.264, but Apple replaces each of these with their own equivalent designed to work with its silicon. HEIC for images, ALAC for audio, HEVC, and ProRes for video. And in every case, the Apple format is smaller, faster, and more power efficient on Apple hardware. But that advantage only holds within the Apple ecosystem. The alternative is generic, flexible formats that work everywhere, but they're slower, take up more space, and they aren't capable of some of the really advanced functionality, such as spatial images. So yes, Apple's proprietary file formats are often annoying and maybe a little bit about lock-in. But the deeper answer is that proprietary formats are the performance lever. That's how Apple turns hardware advantages into software advantages. They're like the connective tissue between the chip and the user experience. And is it annoying? Yeah, the interoperability friction is real and it costs people time every day. But is it effective? Absolutely. Look at the results. Apple's devices consistently outperform devices with objectively more powerful specifications. And that's because of the tight coupling between the format, the framework, and the chip. So the lesson for making technology decisions is not just to ask what format is the most compatible, but to ask what format lets me exploit my hardware the most effectively. And sometimes the proprietary path is the smarter path. Apple figured that out a long time ago, and just because it's annoying doesn't mean it's not better. Please feel free to share your thoughts and opinions in the comment below, and even if you don't like Apple, I'd be happy to hear your perspective. Thanks again, and see you in the next one.